My husband's ex-wife messaged me within 24 hours of our wedding, and now I don't know what to do. Hello, fellow petty potatoes. I'm really needing your help and some grounded perspective right now because my emotions are all over the place. All names have been changed, as friends and family quietly lurk here, and I'd rather not light any unnecessary fires. The background is that I am 39 and I have been with my now husband, Hugh, for just over 4 years. We got engaged in February and decided not to wait around, so we planned our wedding for December and threw ourselves into every single detail. The planning went smoothly, and the day itself was beautiful as the sun shone down on the people we love. It was one of those rare days where everything feels right, and you finally believe that peace has found you. The peace was a lie. Both my husband and I are not very active on social media because for us it's just a quiet way to stay connected to the world. My profile showed I was in a relationship with Hugh, but I never bothered to update it when we got engaged because I rarely post or comment. I certainly wasn't broadcasting wedding countdowns or newlywed bliss online because I prefer to keep my happiness behind closed doors. Hugh's ex-wife, let's call her Chardonnay, was with him for around 12 long and exhausting years. They spent 9 years dating and 1 year engaged before their 2 years of actual marriage turned into a complete disaster. From everything Hugh and his friends and even his mother have told me, their entire relationship was unstable and toxic. They broke up on 4 separate occasions before the wedding because she was constantly looking for reasons to push him away. He should have left then. His parents and best friend asked him more than once if marrying her was the right decision because they could see how unhappy he was. Hugh, always trying to do the right thing, believed marriage would somehow fix what was already deeply broken inside her. Financially, Hugh carried almost everything while he paid most of the bills and the food and the holidays and even bought her a car. Chardonnay worked part-time as a teaching assistant, and her income was treated as her own private spending money for her whims. When friends asked her about her ambitions, she openly said she didn't need a job because Hugh paid for every single thing she wanted. After 2 unhappy years of marriage, Hugh finally found the strength to ask for a divorce because he couldn't breathe in that house anymore. 2 weeks later, COVID hit, and what should have been a clean break turned into a slow and emotionally draining nightmare. The trap was set. Chardonnay refused to move out until a court order forced the issue, and when that day finally came, she did not go quietly into the night. Then came the message less than 24 hours after I married the man I love, while I was still floating between joy and disbelief. I received a private message from Chardonnay that felt like a jagged blade cutting through my expensive white silk dress. She wrote that she thought I'd just married her ex-husband and that he had been trying to contact her on and off for years. She claimed that his most recent attempt to reach her was just 3 days ago while we were finalizing our vows. She said I'd probably heard awful things about her because Hugh demonizes his exes and never takes responsibility for the wreckage he leaves behind. The poison was dripping. She said that she loved him deeply and was still trying to recover from the damage he caused during their decade together. She claimed she didn't want contact with him, but felt she had to warn me because she had been exactly where I am standing now. She told me that he would never give me the life he promised and that he was a master of empty words. Her final words were that when he's good, he's perfect, but when he's bad, it is nothing but pure torture. And just like that, the glow of newlywed happiness cracked right down the middle as I sat on my sofa. I trust my husband, and I am confident there is nothing behind her claim that he's been trying to contact her 3 days ago. Yet the sting remains. I sat in the silence of our new bedroom and stared at the gold band on my finger until my eyes began to blur from the heat of my unshed tears. The message was still glowing on my phone screen like a digital curse that refused to disappear or let me find my peace again. Chardonnay had mentioned that he never takes responsibility and that he demonizes his exes to make himself look like the perpetual victim. I found myself walking toward the closet where Hugh had kept some of his old boxes from the move because I suddenly felt a desperate need to find something. Anything that could prove she was lying, or perhaps something that would show me a side of him I had never seen. I pulled out an old leather-bound journal from his university days and a folder of legal documents from their divorce because my heart was racing like a trapped bird in my chest. I needed to know. As I flipped through the legal papers, I saw the sheer amount of money he had spent just to get her to leave his life and his home forever. The court orders were cold and clinical, and they told a story of a man who was desperate to escape a cage he had built for himself. But then, tucked between 2 pages of a bank statement from 3 years ago, I found a small handwritten note on a yellow sticky pad. It wasn't his handwriting, and it wasn't mine because it was loopy and aggressive, and it just said, "You will never be free of me," followed by a smudged heart. My breath hitched in my throat as I realized that this woman had been planting seeds of doubt long before I ever walked down that aisle. I looked at the date on the bank statement and realized it was from the week we had our first real anniversary dinner. She was always watching. When Hugh finally came home that evening with grocery bags and a tired but genuine smile on his face, I didn't scream or throw the phone at him. I stood in the kitchen and watched the way he moved and the way he hummed a soft tune while he put the milk away in the fridge. I was looking for the torture she had promised and the signs of a man who was hiding a secret life behind my back. He asked me how my day was and if I was still feeling that post-wedding glow because he wanted to take me out for a quiet dinner. I just nodded and smiled a thin and fragile smile while I observed every twitch of his eyes and every vibration in his voice. I wanted to see if the man I loved was a master actor or if he was truly the victim of a woman who couldn't let go of her golden goose. The silence was deafening. Throughout dinner, I remained quiet and let him do all the talking because I wanted to see if he would mention her name or even look at his phone with guilt. He talked about our future and the house we wanted to buy and the kids we had discussed having when the time was right. He seemed so grounded and so sure of us that for a moment I felt ashamed for even letting that bitter woman into my head. But then his phone buzzed on the table and I saw him glance at it and then quickly flip it over, so the screen was facing down. My heart stopped for a beat as I wondered if that was the contact she had mentioned in her toxic little manifesto. I didn't ask him who it was because I wanted to see how long he could go without telling me the truth about his past. I was becoming a ghost. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house felt heavy like the air before a massive summer storm that refuses to break. I was sitting at the breakfast table when I finally pulled out my phone and let the message from Chardonnay sit there in plain sight. I watched Hugh walk into the room, and his eyes immediately landed on the screen because the name was unmistakable even from across the table. The color drained from his face in a way that made my stomach do a slow and painful somersault because I didn't know if it was guilt or fear. He didn't speak for a long minute while the coffee machine hissed in the background and the clock on the wall ticked like a countdown. I finally looked him in the eye and asked him why his ex-wife felt the need to warn me about my own husband within 24 hours of our wedding. The storm had arrived. He sank into the chair opposite me, and his hands were shaking as he reached for the phone to read her words for himself. He read it once and then twice, and then he let out a long and shaky breath that sounded like a man who had been holding his breath for a decade. He told me that he hadn't spoken to her in years, and that the claim of him contacting her 3 days ago was a complete and utter fabrication. He offered me his phone and his laptop and his entire digital life because he said he had nothing to hide from the woman he truly loved. I looked at him, and I saw the same man who had stood by my side during the most difficult days of our engagement. But the seed she had planted was already starting to grow roots in the dark corners of my mind because her words about his bad side were playing on a loop. I chose to watch. I decided that I wouldn't let her hide in the shadows of my marriage any longer, so I did something that I never thought I would do. I didn't reply to her message privately, but instead, I made a post on my social media that I knew her lurking friends would see. I posted a photo of us at the altar with a caption about how some people try to ruin happiness because they are still stuck in the wreckage of their own making. Within an hour, I got a call from Hugh's mother, who was absolutely fuming because she knew exactly who the post was targeted at. She told me that Chardonnay had been calling the family for weeks trying to find out the exact date of our wedding, so she could strike at the perfect moment. The truth came out that she had been stalking our lives from a distance and waiting for the one day she knew would hurt the most. The table had turned. Hugh's mother told me that Chardonnay had tried this with every woman Hugh had ever dated after their divorce, because she couldn't stand the thought of him being happy. The warning wasn't an act of sisterhood or protection, but a desperate attempt to keep a tether on a man who had long ago stopped caring. I realized then that by staying silent and doubting my husband, I was giving her exactly what she wanted, which was power over our new life. I showed Hugh the messages his mother had sent, and we sat together on the floor of our new home, and we laughed until we cried. We laughed at the absurdity of a woman who was so bitter that she would spend her time crafting manifestos to a stranger. The power she thought she had over my emotions evaporated into the thin December air as I finally hit the block button on her profile. She was finally gone. The house feels light again, as if a heavy fog has finally lifted from the hallways and the rooms where we are building our future. Hugh and I have made a pact to never let the ghosts of our past enter our bedroom or our conversations ever again. I look at my wedding photos now, and I don't see the crack in the glow because I see a woman who stood her ground and a man who is worth the fight. We spent the evening unpacking the rest of our wedding gifts and talking about where we want to travel for our actual honeymoon next year. Life isn't a Disney movie, and people can be incredibly cruel when they are hurting, but that doesn't mean we have to let their pain become ours. I am 39 and I am a wife, and I am finally at peace with the man I chose to spend my life with. We are the ones who won. Life has a strange way of testing your foundation right when you think it's finally solid and immovable. Sometimes the people who claim to be warning you are really just trying to pull you down into the hole they dug for themselves. Always trust your gut, but never forget to look at the evidence of the life you have built with your partner over the years. If someone tries to poison your well, don't drink the water and instead find the source and shut it off for good. Have you ever had an ex try to sabotage a new chapter in your life just when things were going well? How do you distinguish between a genuine warning and a malicious lie when it comes from someone's past?